ladies and gentlemen. I am Seba Isifu, a researcher, a writer, a teacher, and a motivational speaker. I've created this particular channel, ASCO Publications Limited, with the intention of helping young people, students, to learn more whilst being in the house as a result of the COVID-19. This particular channel is going to focus mainly on delivery lessons on selected subject areas for senior high school students, as well as series of motivational talk. These are some brief information about us. Our website is www.ascopublications.com. Our WhatsApp number is displayed on the board here, and this is our Facebook page. You can read more about us and get more inspiring articles at our website. So today our topic is supply. And as a matter of fact, supply is one of the most important topics in economics. And here are our learning objectives. By the end of the lesson, students should be able to define supply, distinguish between supply and stock, state the law of supply, illustrate the relationship between price and quantity supplied. Alright, so like I told you, in our first objective, our intention is to define supply. So the question is, what is supply? Now, supply simply refers to the ability and the willingness of the producer to sell certain quantity of goods at a particular price within a given period of time. Now, if you look at this definition very carefully, you will realize that whenever we talk about supply, we are talking about how much the producer is willing and is ready to offer for sale at a given price within a given period of time. Now, supply does not necessarily mean how much the producer has sold, but how much he is willing to sell. So, for instance, the producer may have 20 bags of maize, but then the producer is ready to sell 10 bags of maize at a price of 10 cedis per bag. So the actual quantity which the producer is willing to offer for sale and is ready to offer for sale at that particular price is what we call supply. It is therefore important for us to distinguish between supply and effective supply. The effective supply has to do with how much the producer succeed in selling at the market, the actual quantity that the producer succeeds in selling at the market. That is what we call effective supply. So with our second objective, we are to look at the differences between stock and supply. Sometimes students do confuse themselves with the differences, but there are clear-cut differences between the two. Now, when we talk about stock, it is simply the amount of goods that exist with the producer and which can be offered for sale at a short notice, while supply is the quantity with the producer which the producer is ready and willing to offer for sale at a given period of time. So the first difference is that stock is what the producer has, the total quantity. But out of the total quantity, the amount that the producer is ready to offer for sale represents supply. Number two, stock is a static concept, while supply is a flow concept. Now, when we say stock is a static concept, what we mean is that stock of a commodity at any given period of time cannot be increased or decreased, especially within a short period of time. But supply is a flow concept in a sense that supply of a commodity can be increased or decreased within a short period of time. For example, after harvesting 20 bags of maize, the 20 bags of maize represent the stock you have. It will be difficult to increase the 20 bags of maize to 25 within a week, within a month. However, supply of maize becomes a flow concept because if you have 20 bags of maize and the price of maize goes up and you find it quite good, you can decide to supply. If we were supplying 10, you can decide to increase it to 15 in order to get more money. So that's why we say supply is a flow concept. Number 3, stock depends on the production level, while supply depends on price and stock. Now, the stock of a commodity depends on the total amount the producer was able to get during the production period. If it is farming, let me say during the farming season, the total quantity you were able to produce, given all the natural conditions, represents the stock. But supply always depends on price and stock. Yes, you may have a lot of stock, but whether you will supply more or less depends on 2 things. Number 1, the price level. If the price level is high, you are likely to supply more of what you have. And if the supply level is low, you are likely to supply less. Again, the stock. If you, at the end of the year or the production period, if your stock is high, you are able to produce more quantity, then there is likelihood that you'll be able to supply more. But if your production level is very low, then there's likelihood that you'll be able to supply less. Our third objective is to state the law of supply. But here we want to state the law and go further to explain the reason behind the law. The law of supply states that all other things being equal, the higher the price of the commodity, the higher the quantity supply, and the lower the price of the commodity, the lower the quantity supply. What this statement simply means is this. When the price of the commodity is high, producers will be motivated to sell more. And when the price of the commodity is low, producers will be motivated to sell less. In other words, the relationship between price and quantity supply is direct. That's what the law simply tells us. Because if the price is increasing, producers will also supply more, so quantity supply will increase. And if price is decreasing, producers will supply less, so quantity supply will decrease. So what we now want to look at is, why do producers normally sell more at a higher price and sell less at a lower price? Now the reason is very simple. Now producers are motivated in production to make profits. And you know that profit is equals to total revenue minus total cost. Now, when you look at the law of supply, we say all other things being equal. So we assume that everything remains constant, including the cost of production. So what happens to total revenue is the total revenue here is equals to price times quantity. So if price is high, it means you are going to get more money, revenue. But if price is low, it means your total revenue will fall. Now, if your total revenue is increasing and the total cost remains the same because of this assumption, all other things being equal, then it means your profit level will go up. On the other hand, if price is falling or price is low and the total cost remains the same, then it means you are going to get less profits. Now, because price is directly related to total revenue, anytime price is increasing, producers tend to make more profit. Hence, what motivates them to sell more at a higher price? Anytime price is falling, producers tend to make less profit. Hence, what discourages them from selling more at a lower price? Now, our last objective in this episode is showing the relationship between price and quantity supply. Ladies and gentlemen, there are 3 ways the relationship between price and quantity supply at any point in time can be illustrated in 3 different ways. We can do by first using what we call supply schedule. Now, somebody may ask, what is supply schedule? Supply schedule is simply a table that shows the relationship between price and quantity supply. So it's a table that shows the amount of goods producers are supplying at various prices. So you have price on one column and then you have quantity supply on the other column. So let's say we have 10 cedis, 20 cedis, 30 cedis. And then 10 cedis, the producers supply 200 bags. 20 cedis, they supply 400 bags. And then 30 cedis, they supply 600 bags. So when you have a table like this, that tells you the amount of goods producers are supplying at various prices. We call it supply schedule. Now, one thing you can see from this table is that it simply obeys the law of supply. Because look at something here. At 10 cedis, the producer supplied 200. At 20 cedis, it increased to 400. And at 30 cedis, the quantity supplied increased to 600. So you can still see the law happening here. The lower the price, the lower the quantity supplied. And then the higher the price, the higher the quantity supplied. Now, the second way of representing the relationship between price and quantity supplied is by the use of supply curve. Now, the supply curve is simply a graph that shows the relationship between price and quantity supply. So this time around, not a table, but we have a graph. So the figures we have here on this table, we can put it on the graph. How? This is how it is done. First, this is our graph sheet. We have our y-axis, we have our x-axis. This is the origin of the graph. Now, this is the y-axis, this is the x-axis, as I indicated. In drawing the supply curve, price is represented on the y-axis, and then quantity supply is represented on the x-axis. So on your graph, you have these lines there. They will be there for you. So let's look at something here. We have these prices. So we write the 10 cedis, 20 cedis, 30 cedis. And we have, from the lowest figure, we have 200, 400, 600. So let's look at something here. At the price of 10 cedis, the producer supplied 200. So we are going to look at where 10 and 200 will intersect. So look at 10 here, look at 200 here. They will intersect at this point, so I'll mark there. Then 20 cedis, the producer supplied 400. So I'm going to look at 20 and then also look for 400. So look at them here. This is 20, this is 400. So I'll mark here. And then finally, I will look for 30 and then 600. This is 30 and this is 600. So I will mark it. They meet at this point. When I finish, I will join these points together with a straight line. This straight line that joins these points, and that shows the relationship between price and quantity supply is what we call supply curve. So this is supply curve. Now, what do you observe from this supply curve? It's very simple. You can see that unlike the demand curve, this supply curve slopes upwards from left to right. Now, it slopes upwards from left to right simply because of the law of supply. So if somebody asks you, explain why the supply curve slopes upwards from left to right, or explain why the supply curve slopes positively, the answer is very simple. It slopes upwards from left to right, or it slopes positively because of the law of supply. Or you can also say because of the positive relationship between price and quantity supply. That is the reason why the supply can behave this way. So you can see that at a lower price, less is supply. At a higher price of 30, more, that's 600 is supply.